Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
This sponsorship brought to you by Success in Hiring. Are you struggling with recruiting, hiring, and retaining the right candidates for your business? I know the challenges you face every day running your business. Let me help you by sharing my Success in Hiring system with you. It is a 5-part series where we will cover these 5 areas. 1, recruiting. Number 2, interviewing. Number 3, hiring. Number 4, onboarding. And number 5, coaching. You will receive 1 video each day along with the downloadable resources to make it easy to implement the areas we covered that day. The best part of the series, it is totally free. Why? Because my goal is to help business owners succeed in business and life. To receive the series, go to chargepodcast.com and click on the Success in Hiring link. Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great guest and another great podcast. I love bringing you different people that really have different perspectives, and we try to hit on topics that are current in our situation right now. And with it being the first quarter of 2022, there's a lot going on, and a lot of business owners and individuals are facing this challenge. And I think you're going to love our topic today. So Evan is with us, and I'll give you the detail of Evan a little bit later. But Evan, would you share with our audience today, what problem will you solve for our Chargers?
We help companies of all sizes deal with the supply chain of talent that's really affecting the global, but really the United States in this post-pandemic world.
Well, I love that. And that's one reason we brought you on, because we know people are having challenge finding that talent and knowing how they need to pivot to be able to find the people for their organization to help them grow forward. Now, with this in our Charge podcast, I always ask the guest to tell us what's 3 questions you're going to answer for our Chargers today.
I'm going to answer why is sounds like very Passover-ish. Why is this time different than all other times? Or sort of, what's going on? What's different with COVID that's really changed the job economy? What are episodic events? What are things that are actually happening today that are going to go away? And what's going to be systemic, meaning continue? And how we as businesses need to adjust to this new economy.
Great. I love it. This is going to be a great topic. And today we've got with us Evan Sohn. He's the chairman and chief executive officer of recruiter.com. It's an on-demand recruiting platform that combines AI and video job matching technology with the world's largest network of small and independent recruiters. And that is the reason we had you on, Evan. I'm so glad you said yes to our invitation of joining us on the Charge podcast.
Thanks so much, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is a topic that, of course, is really came to light over this last really 6 months of the year. And it's been before that, but this last 6 months has really come up because we've seen what they call the Great Resignation. And how do we adopt and change that world? So first, why don't we go, and from your point of view, because you're the expert in this field, is what's some of those causes you feel of the Great Resignation besides just the pandemic?
So great question. Why are people leaving their jobs? There's really a combination of reasons. There's no one silver bullet. If there was a silver bullet, you could stop it from happening. There's always been in the U.S. What's called voluntary churn. The U.S. has 20 to 22%, depending on the industry, annual voluntary churn. So that means out of 150 million working people in the United States, 30% are actually moving around every year regardless, whether they're retiring, whether they're shifting jobs, et cetera. So the quote unquote Great Resignation was really a result of people not leaving for a longer period of time, right? I want to stay reticent in my job, healthcare, whatever it is, I'm not going to leave until I knew the pandemic was, quote unquote, going to be over. So that's really what started to happen. That was the first. The second was really the shifting of priorities to work-life balance and new experiences. So what does that mean? That means that Gary moved to Florida instead of New York because everything went remote. And now the company says, come back, Gary, once a week. And Gary's like, I'm never coming back. I love Florida. I moved to Florida. I'm done. That's one example. So sort of I don't want to go back to where I was before. Another really is, hey, you know what? I liked being home with the family. I liked having a job where I could be home when the kids get home from school. We're going to, and we saw that with working women. Is really at a much lower than when it was in a pre-pandemic fashion. So people said, gee, I really like working from home a couple days a week, whatever that is, et cetera. There is a whole other element there of fear of going back to work. So in the in-person roles of the factories, the manufacturing, the restaurants, et cetera, so people, I just don't want to go back to work. Or, hey, instead of working at a factory for $14, $15 an hour, I'll drive for DoorDash for $20 an hour. We saw wage increase. So what happens if hourly wages are increasing, and we've been tracking that all year? Gee, I don't have to work 2 jobs. I don't have to have a job and a half in order to actually make ends meet. I've changed my work-life priorities. And so I quit one job, even though I actually have another job. I had 2 jobs, but I actually quit one of them. And the last really is childcare. Never underestimate that in the, people who grandma watches the children, and now either grandma died because of COVID or grandma's too scared to leave her house. And I don't have childcare anymore. My school's closed, or I don't have childcare, daycare is closed, whatever those rules are. And it really built up this giant great resignation. And again, like I said at the beginning, this is really episodic. So we're predicting probably by the summer that the great resignation will really slow up in terms of just the sheer numbers of people that are quitting. 4.3 million people quit in August, 4.5 million people quit in November. These are just giant numbers of people resigning. But again, people were always resigning, right? These are just more people that are actually resigning.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And really, I appreciate you sharing some of those challenges. And for employers that's listening, the big thing I'm telling you is you've just got to think how you can shift. And that's what you've got to do when you're looking at your business, because instead of doing the business the same old way and say, well, I'm just find that replacement, that's hard to do. And I'm sure you're seeing that in some of your markets with what you do with recruiter.com, is people that are willing to shift how they're doing business are able to attract better candidates.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's actually use this in a empowerment, right? We are now, every company is now more empowered at some level to focus on their core values. Meaning, let's use work location as one, right? You might say, I only want remote work. I might say, I only want in-person work. And the third person says, I want to come into the office once a week. So I used to have to balance my corporate, or a company used to have to balance its corporate culture with its employees. Gee, Gary wants to work remote, full-time. Steve wants to come in once a week. And I have another group of people that only want to work in person. And I have to be nice to everybody. Reality is, I don't need to do that anymore. I can actually say, you know what? I am going to only attract people that want to come to the office, or I'm only going to attract people that want to work remote. So Shopify says I'm going 100% remote, and JP Morgan says, hey, we're going in person. And there's something very empowering about that, right? Because each company is going to attract different people. By the way, while we all love remote, there are a whole number of people that actually want to work in person. I think a recent study, 60% of people's friends come from work. And if you're not working, if you're working remotely, making friends over Zoom is certainly not as easy as working, in person, going out for drinks and after hours and coffee and lunch. All those other things associated with it are really playing that. So, we started talking about the great reevaluation. And again, I'm going to stop using the word great, but everyone gets to reevaluate their own priorities. So Gary gets to decide, how does Gary want to work? But companies get to decide, how does the company want to work? And here's the funny part. The fun part is now, in this new environment of hire from anywhere, or really, work from anywhere is going to morph into hire from anywhere. As a business owner, I could hire anywhere on the planet that I want.
Yeah.
And there's something exciting about that. Now, what that means is that the people that want to work remote, they can work wherever they want. So we're really seeing these like really amazing dynamics that are really happening at a very, very fast level. I think the other thing that it means for businesses is that you are going to spend more money. Every business will spend more money on talent acquisition in 22 than ever before. I'll give you a crazy number. So this isn't me, you can Google it. The average cost to hire an employee is $4,425. That's like an hourly employee, but let's use that as the number just for argument's sake. An executive starts at about $14,000. This is actually the cost to hire them, which includes spending of online job boards and scheduling and all the other things associated with it. So the proven cost to hire an employee on the low side is $4,425. There were 6.7 million people hired in November. So again, you might see job numbers that say 200,000. When you see those jobs report, those are about the new people hired. There were 6.7 million people hired in November of 21. There were 6 million people hired in November of 20. So we hired 700,000 more people were hired in November 21 than November 20 because more people are quitting. People are quitting and they're not staying home. They're quitting to go to another job. That means, Gary, that roughly $5 billion more was spent in November hiring than there was the prior November. And that's not going away, man. Yeah. So, you're going to be seeing every company spend more money on hiring people in 22 than they did certainly in 19. Right. So let's forget 20 and 19. Let's forget 21 and 20. But back in 19, you're going to see significant billions and billions of dollars more spent by the U.S. economy, by U.S. businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as we have to really take a look at too, how can we diversify that and how can we change that? And I think that's really, as businesses, we have to look as owners and executives and CEOs in these companies is how are we going to attract the talent that we want in each one of those areas, because employees are prioritizing different things. You talked about some of them, just depending what style work they want, those 3 styles that's there. But that's one of the things that you were going to kind of share with us is how does employees, we have to prioritize that. You talked about it as employers. Now we have a chance to get back to our core values. But how does this affect the work? Because, for some people, they still got that old mindset, that fixed mindset that says, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Evan, but, I've never done that. I've never had somebody remote. I've always had them in my office.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. We struggle with it as our own company. We're about 70 something people. We're 100% virtual. We've always been virtual. And I struggle with it all the time. It's not easy to build culture. How do you build culture? How do you interview over Zoom, right? How do you read body language? It's crazy. I'm a guy that comes from the sales background where you close deals in person. You shake hands with the person in front, across the table and say, do we have a deal? Yeah, we have a deal. Great. Because deals are about people and about relationships and all these other things. Like that's the cloth that I'm cut from. And here we are operating in a virtual environment. It's certainly challenging. I think that if we're going to talk about talent and culture, you got to embrace it. The parallel I'm using is really security. I spent a bunch of years in IT security, and 1,000 years ago, we didn't care about security, right? Security just wasn't, we weren't worried about viruses and spam and all these other things. And now, hey, that's part of our conversation. Every company that's using a website or email has someone allocated to security. You might be it could be a full-time chief security officer and this is a security department, or it could be outsourced security and hosted VPN and open service areas, et cetera. But we all recognize that security is a budgetary item that we need to allocate for. And I think that every CEO, every business owner needs to be thinking about, all right, how do I create a culture that's going to keep people? How do I keep them longer? And in terms of some tactical applications, I think you need to show employees progression. This millennial group, a recent survey of millennials, 60% of millennials had no problem leaving their job within the first 6 months. Think about that. Everything that our parents and grandparents told us, oh, your first job, you got to give 4 years, suck it up, and doesn't. Like, they're gone. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, wrote an article about 2 months ago begging employees, please stay with a company for at least 24 months. 24 24 months. So you have this, and by the way, I'll tell you that statistically now, according to our index, compensation is no longer the highest priority either. So what does that mean? It means that people are looking for different things. So as a business owner, perhaps what you want to do, if you're going to be in person and you're going to force people to be in person, then only attract people that care about money, right? Because you can easily deal with that. Hey, I'll pay you more money. So I think that what the alignment really is about is being able to not shy away from core values. I heard a really cool podcast probably about 2 months ago, and it was the founder of a company. And he goes, look, I'm an engineer and I surrounded myself with engineers. We coded all day long. And then we went home to our families. We didn't have beer parties and after work, and there were no high fives and pizzas. I surrounded myself with people who said, hey, look, work is work and I want to go home. And I think those sorts of things are going to play out today to your audience is, you get to decide what sort of company you want to have and attract those people that want to have that. And there's something very, very, very refreshing about that, right? Because the fact of the matter is, in today's environment, if you don't want to work for me, then don't work for me, right? If I have these values and you don't want to align with those values, that's not society's fault, right? Just go someplace else because you can work wherever you want.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it sets up is for the business owner, it really is a time that they can really get some freedom from their side of it. Yeah, there's systems they've got to have in place and accountability. But this gives them a little more freedom from their own business to be able to create something different than what they've had. Because sometimes, let's be honest, as a business owner, you feel a little bit, you're chained to your business. Now you can recreate, and there's the opportunity becomes tremendous because the talent pool that maybe you live in a smaller community like I do, the talent pool is not as large, and you can't find that person that to attract to get that top talent that you need that can take you to that next level. Well, if you're willing to figure out how remote works, this could give you an opportunity that other companies, that decides to stay the same way and have that fixed mindset won't have.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll give you two other elements there. So one is, I think that we're going to shift very quickly as a society, as a business society, to metrics oriented rather than time. And I'll give you a great example. If you got an email from someone at 11:30 at night 4 years ago, you would say, wow, this person was really working late, right? Can't believe they're working so late. They emailed me at 11:30 at night. If I get an email now at 11:30 at night, you know what I say? This person must have taken off for dinner, hanging out with the family, and now they're coming back online, right? So there's none of this preconceived notion, in my opinion. Of course, I could be wrong, and I apologize to anyone who's different, but that's really what I assume. I assume that a person emailing me at 11:30, hey, finished the day, 7 o'clock, 7:30, took off a couple hours, had dinner, watched TV, did homework with the kids, and then went back online and sent me an email. Hey, I'm still grateful they sent me an email, but the message that it delivers is not the same message that it delivered, 5 years ago. So I think we're moving to this metrics. And my advice to the audience is, this notion of clocking in, clocking out. And again, it's obviously different if it's whatever the environment is, but what roles can you have that are about getting it done as opposed to how much time you put in? And sales is the best example. If I didn't hit a number and someone said to me, well, Evan, you didn't hit your number. Yeah, but I put a lot of hours in, right? Who cares, right? You have a number to hit. And I think that's part of that society. That's part of that overall change. I think the second thing that companies should start embracing, and we're doing it at recruiter.com, is really thinking about, part-time employees, really thinking about, hey, look, this is an 80, I'm calling it 80% full-time jobs, right? This is a full-time job that you're going to do 80%. You want off Fridays, take off Fridays. You want off Wednesdays, take off Wednesdays. And so creating environments that really embrace the fact that people liked this sort of, I had more time to myself. So come in the office 4 days a week. Again, let's assume that you're in person, but just take off Wednesdays, go. And I think that for some people that didn't have that work-life balance, the remote world, the COVID world was a very difficult world. I'm on, the expectation is I'm online from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, and I have no time to breathe because someone's going to Zoom me. okay, stop that. Take a deep breath. Let's get that balance in order. I was in an office of one of our shareholders, and he was calling up his stockbroker. It's 11:15 in the morning, and the stockbroker goes to him, "Hey, I'm walking my dog. Can I call you back in a few minutes?" And what was incredible was, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, no one would. The response to the broker would have been, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I'm tied up. Can I call you back in a few minutes?" Not, "I'm outside." In other words, we're all trying to figure out this work-life balance thing. And I think the challenge for your audience is, align it to your own corporate objectives, attract people that align with those. But if you're trying to be in person, you could still create work-life balance. You could still do that in an in-person environment. Go part-time, go 80% full-time roles.
Yeah, I love that because last in fourth quarter, I had on Joe Sanek, and he wrote the book, Thursday is the New Friday. And what he's saying, you don't have to take Friday off, but we have to find, because people are demanding and wanting now that flexibility. And that's what you're saying is, if that's what they want, how can we make it work within our organizations? But really, I love what you talk about, really, because it's about aligning your corporate values. What do you want that to be? And really opening up the opportunity for yourself and your company, and then the people that you're bringing onto that company. And it's really, I think it's a shift, the biggest shift, I believe, and maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong, but I think the biggest shift is we have to get leadership and management to really think differently, because the employees are already there.
Yeah. Well, here's the good news. The good news is that, you're going to lose 30% of your employees this year, right? 20%, 30%. There's going to be some crazy number. And the question now is, who do you replace them with? Right. So obviously, in the world of diversity and inclusion, we're looking to make sure that we're, restaffing our companies aligned with our own corporate values. But it's not just about diversity values and other values. It's about, I want to make sure I'm staffing the company, or I'm building my team back up with people that want to work the way I want to work, or work the way my management wants to work, whatever that is. And there's something, like I said, there's something really refreshing about that. Think about a culture where you have a company and you're 50 people, you're running a business with 50 people, and 25 of the 50 want to only work remote, and 25 out of the 50 only want to work in person. There's a real clash. There's a real corporate clash there. Well, if the remote folks start to leave because they want to leave, and replace them with the people that align with what you want to be doing. And there's something very exciting about that opportunity.
Yeah, that is a very good point that you make there. Before we wrap up, really, Evan, I wanted to have you share, you kind of talked about it, but really some of the pieces we've talked about, that last one of kind of adjusting. You talked about some of the ways that I think employers need to adjust, but what do you see in that future of the job market? Because you've told us, it's really changing. Yeah.
So what's never going back is the giving out the gold watch for someone that works 25 years at a company, right? Like that. And again, I'm generalizing to prove a point. We are entering what we call the job hopper economy. When you see a resume, and I'll give you a good example, just a visual, Gary, you look at a resume of a 30-year-old. 4 years ago, you had a resume of a 40-year-old. 4 years ago, you had a resume of a 30-year-old who had been at the same company for 10 years. You would probably describe that person as loyal, committed, steadfast, climbing the ladder. If you saw a resume today, January of 22, of a 30-year-old who's been at the same company for 10 years, and the company's not Google or McKinsey or something, you would say risk averse, stale, not interested in trying new things. Like, what's wrong? How come no one wants to hire this person? Like, why is this person stuck? We are now entering the job hopper economy. It has never been easier to apply for a job. It's never been easier to apply for a job. You could apply for any job you want. You go on LinkedIn, you go on ZipRecruiter, you click, 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 click. It's really simple. Interviewing is now a 15-minute Zoom screen, right? So this notion that it's a full-time job to find the job would not be written. That line would not be authored in January of 22. And there's no stigma anymore in terms of leaving, right? You look at Silicon, and this was happening before COVID. You went to Silicon Valley, and I spent a bunch of years there. Very common to see a resume for someone who's been, 12 years, 3-4 companies. Wow, this guy's hot. He's amazing. This guy's so talented. And so that's where we're heading into. We're heading into this job hopper economy. More people than ever before are going to be leaving jobs. And if you're not showing them progression, they're going to look for their own progression someplace else.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that because I think that really helps us kind of frame it up and really get our mindset set in how we need to look at things, because, you did in the past, you looked at them and you looked at longevity and thought that was the benefit. Now there's different things that you look at. Share with us a little bit. I know you got some great resources on recruiter.com, and I would tell people to go there to be able to check out your website, but kind of share with us, what is recruiter.com? How do you solve this issue in your space?
Thank you. So everyone needs now more help in solving this problem. And either you do it recruiting has been the same way for the last 30 plus years. We're out to reinvent it. So in recruiting, either you did it yourself or you hired a headhunter to do it for you. We provide on-demand tools and on-demand people to make that happen, really on an on-demand basis. So you could think of us as like Uber for talent acquisition. So, I need to hire a media recruiter to hire a bunch of people for me for the next 3 months. We don't charge success fees on the placements. It's all by the hour, by the week, by the month. It's an assignment and an engagement on demand. And it's really amazing to watch us drive success for our clients. And then we have tools. We actually empower the recruiters, the on-demand recruiters, with AI, artificial intelligence software, which accesses our database of over 150 million profiles. I said that 150 million index profiles. It's pretty amazing. Very successful tools. And we combine the two together to really help recruit talent faster for companies of all sizes. We work with Fortune 50 and we work with startups. Everyone's having a challenge. Everybody is having a challenge in attracting talent and candidates, and they need more, and they need a bigger pipeline, et cetera. And there's a reason now that there's a surge in demand for recruiters, and we're at the epicenter of all that activity.
So if I'm a small business owner, because a lot of my clients are, Evan, and I've got 10 to 20 employees, you have solutions there. I would probably say that, look, you'll probably try to do it by yourself. You'll say, hey, look, let me go on LinkedIn or a ZipRecruiter or an Indeed. But if you're having a harder time doing it, or I need a fractional, hey, I need someone to help me 10 hours a week to help recruit, or, whatever it is, that's really what our platform would support for your audience. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it was so valuable when I went in there, because I really did notice that in the small business area, a lot of times we would think we're not one of your ideal clients and stuff, and that you have people available to us. Because right now, I'm seeing it I have coaching clients, and it's the biggest struggle is finding the people, and the traditional ways that they were using are not working anymore.
That's right. The example I give is, if you're using ZipRecruiter to, let's pretend for a moment that ZipRecruiter, you were a restaurant, right? And you opened up, you had a door and you were not getting enough customers. Putting another door next to the other door is not going to drive more customers. Putting a back door is also not going to drive more customers. You need a different way to do it. You need a proactive approach. You need to be using, everything at your disposal to fill those roles. And that's what we do for companies, large and small.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. What a great insight. I can't wait to share this just with my clients that I work with each and every month, because I know there's some valuable information here, but this is one of those podcasts that is so relevant today. And I just appreciate you being so open and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. But before I let you go, I ask every guest 2 questions. It's kind of what I call the recharge round. And the first one is charge. Of course, that's my mantra and the name of the podcast: create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think's led to success in your life, Evan?
I am very, I'm assertive, but open-minded. So I get very focused. I'm very good at figuring out the next step, right? So I think, when you run a ball down a field, you don't go from the 1 yard line, the 1 yard, whatever, the 99-yard line to the 1 yard line. You got to run across the whole field. And I'm very good at moving a ball down a field, knowing like you're at A, you got to get to B, you got to get to C. And I think that when I give guidance to people, it's get really, really clear on what's next. What's next? Don't tell me what's 9 steps later, because you don't get to 9 steps later without getting next. And I think developing skills that let you get to the next step, figuring out what is the next step, what do you need to accomplish next, and get really highly fixated on what is next.
I love that. And the next question is we've all had failures. and we would love to have a do-over. Of course, in life, there is not do-overs, but in that do-over, if you had that failure that you wanted, what would you change?
Yeah, I think that always surround yourself with fantastic people and a partner. You always need a partner. You need a partner in life, a spouse. You need a partner in business. You need someone that you could trust, that shares your values, that's aligned with your objectives, that has no hidden agenda, and is really in the battlefield with you. And I think that, when I look back at areas when where I had issues, it was when I went into business without a true partner, because employees always have their own values and their own objectives, and they're not the same as a partner, right? The success of my family, I share that with my wife, and I share that value of making sure our family is successful. Third-party folks, other folks might want the best for us, but they're not going to have that same alignment. And business is the same. You want to have a true partner where you are, completely aligned with what needs to happen.
I think that's a great one, because, in partner in business, if you have that somebody that you can really confide in and have them shared values, you're going to go farther each and every time in your life. So great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. Evan, before I let you go, share with them. I shared it a little bit, but we'll put it also in show notes, your website, and any way if you would like people to connect with you. I think you've got a Twitter account.
Yeah, sure. Evan Sohn. So you could either, that's my Twitter account, Evan Sohn, or you could clearly recruiter.com. You can get in touch with me through recruiter.com. You can go to the website, fill out a form. More than happy to reach you. I'm on LinkedIn, also Evan Sohn. I was early days LinkedIn, so I've got all that stuff there. So really, absolutely. Or, for your audience, they want to email me, evan@recruiter.com. But again, absolutely welcome the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Super. I appreciate that, Evan. We appreciate your expertise today. And Chargers, I tell you, you got a lot of information in this one. This is one you're going to have to go back. I took 2 pages of notes while Evan was talking. So I'm going to go back myself and review it as we put the notes together that will be in chargepodcast.com. But go check their website out, recruiter.com, because I know I've got a lot of business owners that listen to this podcast. And the thing is you're having this challenge. So I would advise you re-listen to it, but then really make an action step of what you're going to do. And really, it's about getting really about where do you want your business to go? And then being able to attract those right candidates. And Evan said, it's really about the values. What are your values that you want to have? If you want to have a total in-person work environment, that's fine. But don't think you have to do that just because you've always done that. Maybe it's time to adjust because you've lost 3 or 4 people, and now it's time to adjust that. So, and this is one of those 2 Chargers I'd ask you, other business owners. So, on your app, you can go up and you hit the 3 little dots, and you can easily share this through a text message, and you could help another business owner that is struggling in that same area. So if you would like and share this podcast, we would truly appreciate it. Evan, I thank you again for joining us on the Charge Podcast.
Thank you so much. Really, and have a great day. This has been awesome. Thanks so much, Gary.
Chargers, I give you the action. Go out there now and take action on what you're doing. Make it a great day. We'll see you next week.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.